What if I told you that a single decision made today with less money than a monthly gym membership could place you ahead of 97% of the world's population in the most scarce financial network ever created? Not a full Bitcoin, not some massive investment, just 0.1 BTC, 1/10. Most people hear that and immediately think, what's the point? But that reaction, that's exactly why most people will miss it entirely. Because the future doesn't care how much you wanted to own. It only remembers what you secured. Here's what almost nobody stops to think about. Bitcoin has a hard cap, 21 million coins. Ever. No exceptions. No central bank printing more, no government emergency override. The math is locked in the code, permanent and unchangeable. Now take those 21 million coins and slice them into 0.1 BTC pieces. You get 210 million slices. Sounds like plenty, right? There are over 8 billion people on this planet. If every single person tried to own just 1/10 of a Bitcoin, there wouldn't be enough for even 3% of humanity. The other 97%? They'd get nothing. But it gets tighter than that. Millions of Bitcoin are already gone, lost forever. Forgotten passwords, destroyed hard drives, wallets no one can access. Conservative estimates put that number at 3 to 4 million coins vanished permanently. The real circulating supply isn't 21 million, it's significantly less. Now layer on this, there are over 120 million millionaires in the world right now. If each one decided to buy just one full Bitcoin, there wouldn't be enough to go around. Not even close. And that's before you count the corporations, hedge funds, pension managers, and governments that are already buying. This isn't hypothetical scarcity, it's mathematical reality, and it's already happening. The biggest mistake most people make is looking at the price first. They see $60,000, $80,000, $100,000, and they immediately conclude, that's not for me. They walk away, and in walking away, they never realize the opportunity was never about buying a whole coin. You don't need a whole Bitcoin to participate in what it represents. What you need is a plan, a consistent, boring, disciplined plan, and the patience to let it work. That plan has a name, dollar cost averaging, or DCA. The concept is simple. Instead of trying to time the market, which even Wall Street professionals consistently fail at, you buy a fixed amount on a regular schedule. Every week, every month, whatever fits your life. When the price drops, your money automatically buys more. When it rises, you buy less, but you stay in the game. Over time, your average cost smooths out, and the emotional roller coaster of watching charts becomes irrelevant. Let's ground this in real numbers. Say you invest $100 every single week. That's roughly $5,200 a year. Over 5 years, you've put in around $26,000 total. Depending on market conditions, including downturns where your dollars buy more, you could accumulate somewhere around 0.1 Bitcoin over that period, possibly more. No gambling, no leverage, no panic buying at the top. Just a steady, methodical accumulation built on one principle. Time in the market beats timing the market. The people who build wealth with Bitcoin aren't the ones who caught the exact bottom. They're the ones who didn't quit, who kept buying through the dips, the crashes, the news cycles telling them it was over. Bitcoin doesn't reward genius, it rewards patience. Every 4 years, something happens that most investors still don't fully appreciate: the halving. Bitcoin's code cuts the reward miners receive for processing transactions in half. It happened in 2012, 2016, 2020, and 2024. Each time, the rate at which new Bitcoin enters circulation gets cut in half again. We're now in an era where new supply is a trickle compared to what it once was. By the early 2030s, Bitcoin's annual new supply will be negligible, less than the margin of error in a rounding error. At the same time, demand is accelerating. BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard. These aren't fringe players. These are the institutions that manage retirement accounts for tens of millions of ordinary people. They're now offering Bitcoin ETFs, products that allow billions of dollars to pour into the space through the same financial plumbing people use to buy index funds. And on the government side, El Salvador made Bitcoin legal currency. Several nations are actively mining it and building national reserves. Why? Because 2022 was a wake-up call when $300 billion in Russian sovereign assets were frozen overnight by Western powers. Every finance ministry in the world asked the same question: if our money can be frozen, do we actually own it? Bitcoin's answer to that question is written in code, not politics. Think about the money in your wallet right now. Every dollar, euro, or rupee you're holding is subject to one simple law. Governments want it to be slowly worth less over time. They call it a 2% annual inflation target. What it actually means is that the purchasing power of your savings erodes every single year by design. The US dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power since 1971. A dollar saved in 1971 buys less than 15 cents of goods today. That's not inflation getting out of control, that's the intended outcome of the system. And for many countries, it's far worse. The Argentine peso, the Turkish lira, the Venezuelan bolivar, entire life savings wiped out not by bad luck, but by deliberate monetary policy. Bitcoin was engineered to be the opposite of that. Fixed supply, no inflation mechanism, no central authority with printing rights. When you hold Bitcoin, you're holding something that cannot be diluted by a committee vote at 2 a.m. Holding fiat is like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. You can work harder and harder and still fall behind. Holding even 0.1 Bitcoin is a bet that math is more reliable than monetary policy. And historically, math has a pretty good track record. Here's the uncomfortable reality that rarely gets said plainly. You are now competing for Bitcoin not just with other individual investors, but with trillion-dollar institutions and sovereign nations. Every Bitcoin ETF share purchased by a pension fund represents real Bitcoin being pulled out of circulation. Every government that adds Bitcoin to its reserves is claiming a seat that can never be recreated. The arena has 210 seats if we're talking 0.1 BTC slices, and the largest players on Earth have just walked in. If you already hold even a fraction, you're ahead, not just of the average retail investor, but of institutions that are only now scrambling to understand what they've been ignoring for over a decade. That window exists right now. It is not permanent. Everything we've walked through isn't a prediction, it's arithmetic. Coins are being lost every day. New supply is shrinking every 4 years. Institutional demand is accelerating. Governments are buying. And the total supply is fixed at 21 million forever. So the question isn't whether Bitcoin is scarce. The question is, where will you be when the scarcity becomes undeniable to everyone? Because when that moment arrives, and history suggests it will, the doors won't be wide open. The people already inside won't be selling, and new coins won't be minted to accommodate latecomers. 10 years from now, you'll either say, "I moved while the window was open," or you'll say, "I waited for the perfect moment and it never came." Scarcity doesn't negotiate. It doesn't offer extensions. It just becomes obvious, usually too late for those who are watching from the sidelines. You don't need to understand all of it. You just need to understand enough to start. And starting with 0.1 Bitcoin in a world where 97% of humanity can never own that much isn't a small thing. It's a position. If this gave you something to think about, hit like and subscribe. I cover the concepts most financial content is too cautious to explain plainly. And if you're just starting to research Bitcoin, drop a question in the comments. No jargon, no judgment, just the information you actually need. See you in the next one.